I think if we allow ourselves to see it as well as experience it, we can find beauty and meaning in the everyday tasks, in the everyday life. It can often feel like drudgery, especially when we're doing these same things over and over. Now, I'm making my coffee every day. To me, that's not drudgery. That's a bad example because I love making my morning lattes. After I take my children to school, there are times where I'm like, you know what? Should I go to the local coffee shop and get myself something? And every time that thought comes in, it's very fleeting because it goes very quickly out when I think of, no, I can make a better latte at home with my purity coffee beans, my collagen peptides, and my raw milk. But coffee is not the point of today's video. The point is really to find beauty and meaning in the mundane. So maybe it's laundry, right? Laundry is something that, gosh, we'll do laundry till the day we die. It's never ending. Cleaning the house, cleaning the toilets, making dinner. I mean, I feel like I'm making dinner 10 times a day. But if we allow it to become drudgery, it will. So I'm just going to be taking you along today, just kind of an average day. My kids are at school and my husband's at work. I do have a full-time job. I do work from home. And so I do have a little bit of flexibility within that schedule to get things done around the house, which I'm extremely grateful for. So we're just going to go about the day and find meaning in the mundane. One of the things that I have got to get done is to put my Azure standard items away. I placed an order. These things have been sitting on the counter for probably about 5 or 6 days now, and it's just time to get them put away. It was not a large order, but it was no less important than any other order. So I only had a handful of things, but one of them was organic brown jasmine rice, some active yeast. Now, I strictly make sourdough bread, and I do have some dry yeast left that I purchased in 2020. Yes, 2020. And so this is now the first pound I am buying in 4 years. And I put it directly into the freezer because I find as long as it is in a dry, sealed jar, it will really last that much longer, and that pound will probably go for another 4 years. I also went through my spice cabinet and just kind of really took inventory of what do I need. And so all I needed to purchase really were the peppercorns, the garlic, powdered garlic, and then the onion granules. And we all find our little nooks and crannies to kind of store things away. And my prized possession is this room, our front pantry room. Organizing my vinegars. It's funny because oftentimes people will comment either here or on Instagram when they see pictures and they're just like, wow, you have a lot of vinegar. Yes, we do. Vinegar doesn't go bad. And so I buy it by the gallon, and I use the regular vinegar for cleaning. I use apple cider vinegar for just about everything. And by having it on hand in those bulk gallon jugs, it just makes more financial sense. So I have 25 pounds bag of organic cane sugar. The bag that I'm just kind of emptying into my glass jar here, I bought that bag probably 8 or 9 months ago. So the 25 pounds probably does last a full year. I only wanted to make sure I was stocked up as we go into the holiday season with baking and all of the wonderful goodness that comes along with the holidays, just making sure we had what we needed. But that now means this new 25-pound bag is going to go back into my 5-gallon bucket. I do not empty things out of their original packaging into the buckets. I find that it's just easier to keep it into the bags, especially when we're talking about the Azure standard bags, the 25-pound bags. And I'm easily able to get it into the bucket with a gamma lid and store it. For me, that's what works. I realize other people may prefer to empty things in. So this is the original bucket along with the new box in my last order. This is dishwasher powder. Okay, so the bucket is what I had purchased over a year and a half ago. It was 30 pounds. I am so excited. I get excited over the craziest things. And I don't know what I was thinking right here, because to me, I was like, oh, well, this is a good idea. I will dump the powder into the bucket just like this. And I'm realizing this is not a good idea. So let me pick it up and dump it. Nope. That's not going to work either. Oh, wait, now my brain's working. I'm going to scoop. And so that 30-pound bucket, it was empty, right? I already finished it, but it lasted a year and a half. And so now Azure is selling it in these bags in the box, and it's 50 pounds. It took me a little bit to realize that I did not have equal amounts from my original bucket amount to the new amount. But I scooped in what I could, and then the rest, I'll use that up first. So this dishwasher powder is such a good value, guys, because again, it lasted, and the 30 pounds lasted a year and a half. 50 pounds might even last 2 years. Who knows? To me, you just can't beat that by having it on hand and not having to spend $8 or $10 on a dishwasher pack or powder every month. This is such a better deal and a better use of my time, quite honestly. So this is one of my favorite things from Azure. And this is sexy. So I put this in my Azure order when I had heard about the East Coast possible dock strike with the dock workers. I went and made sure I got toilet paper. And the other reason is because when I had gone to Costco last, Costco was literally out of toilet paper. Now, I don't think that had anything to do with the dock strike. I actually think that had everything and anything to do with Hurricane Helene in the western part of our state and all of the supplies being sent to the people who really needed them. And so I like to try to get the drudgery or the chores done first before I allow myself to have any fun. I had 2 extra gallons of raw milk from our herd share, and I needed to get them used up because I was picking up 2 more gallons in just a couple of days. So Jarlsberg cheese is what this milk is destined to be. I have never made this recipe before. I often make my recipes from Ricky Carroll's book. What was it? Introduction to Cheese, or Learn How to Make Cheese. I think it's a fantastic book. She's affiliated with New England Cheese Making Company, which is where I get a lot of my cultures from. I store my cultures in the freezer. And for this particular one, I needed Flora Danica and then I'm going to say this wrong, but the Propionic Shermani. That's what gives Swiss and Jarlsberg those beautiful gas holes. So going through the process and cheese making at first, I've been doing this for 3 years now, our own hard cheeses. It was so intimidating and nerve-wracking. And the more I've done it, and so you may feel that way, but just dive in, because the more you do it, the more you get it. Like, you get the process as to why you're doing what you're doing. So I've already added my culture, my rennet. It was sitting. Now I'm cutting my curds, or cutting my huge mass into curds. For this recipe, it wanted you to cut them into columns and then let them sit for a few minutes, let some whey come to the top. And then I used this really big heavy duty whisk to kind of cut the curds into much smaller pieces. But once you get into cheese making, it's such a new and exciting world. I really do treasure it. It forces you to kind of slow down, take stock in what you're doing, and be very mindful, which I think we all can benefit from, with our busy lives. And cheese making is not hard. I mean, let's be real. It's really not hard. You do need to be home. There are quite a few steps, but it's very little hands-on time, I have found. So once you really get into the process of, adding your culture, adding your calcium chloride, letting it sit, adding your rennet, let it sit, cut your curds, cook your curds, put your curds into a cheese mold, press. That's the basic gist. And then the different recipes vary on that with the cultures, the temperature, and how long you do each step. It's later in the day. My husband and daughter are at our state fair, and my son, I had to take him to soccer practice. So while he's at soccer practice, I have a limited time to go ahead and water. It has been extremely dry here in central to eastern North Carolina ever since the hurricane has passed, and I have things to keep alive. So I've got my 5-gallon buckets with our water, and I've got a gallon. I mean, this is very low tech, guys. I have a little gallon pail that I just dip in and water my plants by hand. Again, it's tedious, but it forces me to just kind of appreciate everything and gives me the chance to really look at the plants and see how they're doing. So that's my squash tunnel. It is my pride and joy. I did have some issues with squash bugs, but not at all nearly what I would have thought I'd had. I have so many tromboncino and winter squash at home. And as you can see, there's so many more, and I'm so excited. These tromboncinos showed up really within the last 3 weeks because my mom and kids and I went to Boston 3 weeks ago, and I had harvested everything before that trip. So these have really just all shown up. And look at all these babies. These are butternut babies. I could not believe how many butternuts were coming just in the last 3 weeks too. Now, we probably have another 3, maybe 4 weeks till our first frost. And so I'm really hoping these get as big as they possibly can. So when I'm watering, I'm really trying to focus on the items in the pots because they dry out first. So the squashes, and then in that raised bed, there's peppers, but there's also beets and carrots. And then in those other pots was horseradish and witch hazel plants. This is mullein. So the other thing I went and took stock of within the last couple of days is our Apothecary. And I am almost low on mullein leaves, which is really good for congestion and, cold and flu season coming up. So I'm picking some of the younger, healthier leaves. I don't want to take too many because I do want the plant to survive. And now I'm getting some toothache. This is spilanthes, which is so fun because once you grow it, you'll never have to not seed it again. It reseeds itself beautifully. But these have a numbing effect on your mouth. My daughter always puts a couple in her mouth when she comes to the garden with me because it's just fun. My lavender has already put up some new shoots of blooms, and so it's not a big harvest, but it's enough that brought me joy and made my hands smell amazing. And so that'll be dried out. Guys, this is cardinal basil, and this is the only basil I will grow from this point forward. It is gorgeous. It holds itself up, I think, so much better than Genovese basil. It doesn't get brown, like those brown spots, or bruised like Genovese basil does. So I'm picking some of these flower clusters that are a little bit more dried out because my goal is to try to save some seeds. I struggle with this a bit, but this is Rumex crispus, which is yellow dock. And yellow dock is, it almost looks like a carrot. It's a root that is a bitter. It is extremely good for your liver and digestion in general. And so I knew that this would be a pretty big one, and I wanted to get that home as well to do some fun things with. We're home. Soccer is over. I now need to feed my son and get everything in the house. Oh, and Marley. Marley needs to eat too because he's hungry. He always is. And he's excited to have us home. One of the things I do is just kind of put everything on the counter for a few reasons, but I would say the main reason is because inevitably when I'm harvesting things at the garden and bring it home, there's always a couple of hitchhikers with bugs, and usually I see them kind of crawling around on the counter, and I'm easily able to take care of that. And the other reason is because I truly just want to appreciate the work and the beauty of everything. The mullein needs to be washed so I can get it into the dehydrator. I am trying to pull out some of those larger ribs on those larger leaves, as well as breaking it up, just making it easier within the salad spinner. I ended up dehydrating these overnight, so about 12 to 15 hours. And then the next day I was able to crush it and put it into my jar in our apothecary. With this basil, my goal is strictly seed saving. And so while some of these leaves are perfectly good to save and use for cooking or drying, I'm going for these babies, these tiny little seeds. So my strategy is to really just kind of put the blooms in the bowl, let them dry, and then shake those seeds out to save to grow next year. The yellow dock, I actually broke it into some smaller pieces just to get some of that dirt out, but that's soaking before I tackle that. The spilanthes I am going to make into a tincture. Some of these herbs are just best tinctured fresh, and the spilanthes is one of those. And so getting all of those beautiful little flowers, or bullseye ones, and topping it with some brandy. I only had so much vodka and I wanted to save that for the yellow dock. So the spilanthes is destined for brandy. I'm basically doing the same exact thing with the yellow dock. It's kind of like a carrot, but you do have to be careful when you're cutting it because it is much more harder than a carrot. It's like more firmer and a little bit tougher. And so you've got to be careful when you're cutting to make sure the knife doesn't slip and you accidentally cut yourself. But chopping it into smaller pieces and then getting that right into my glass jar to top it with the vodka.